Public libraries get a bad rap for being outdated institutions in a modern world. What people don't realize is that public libraries are champions for equity, diversity, and access. They are beacons of hope, sharers of knowledge, and builders of community. Come along as we show you what a public library is really like. What are you waiting for? Come check us out at Red Deer Public Library. This is our story. Be a part of the story. The beginnings of Red Deer Public Library start all the way back in 1914. Red Deer Public Library was one of the first 4 libraries to be established under the Libraries Act of Alberta. On September 1st, 1914, Red Deer Public Library was created.
So the early days of the Red Deer Public Library got started in 1914. We know that that's when the library itself first opened its doors to the public. But the history of the Red Deer Public Library actually goes back to about 1907. That was when the Alberta government passed the Public Libraries Act, and that's what allowed public libraries to kind of spring up around the province. And right away there was couple people in Red Deer who were really excited about starting a library. That was J.F. Boyce, who was the inspector for the Red Deer schools, and W.J. McLean, who was the principal of the Red Deer school. And they really spearheaded a campaign to start the Red Deer Public Library in 1907, but unfortunately didn't have a lot of public support for the idea. So it sort of died away until 1914 when City Council got on board with the project and the library was established. My name is Nicole Lytle. I am the museum associate at the Red Deer Museum and Art Gallery. Like the very first head librarian of the Red Deer Public Library was Ina Green. She was 17 years old, and I just think that that's really cool that at the time, you know, lots of these societies and community organizations and stuff were sort of old boys clubs, and the Red Deer Public Library was like, we're putting Ina Green in charge of all the books. So I think that's really cool. Red Deer was one of the earliest places in central Alberta, I believe, to have a library. Like, for example, Lacombe, which was its biggest competition at the time in terms of size, didn't get their library until 1931. So Red Deer already had a library for 15 years by that point.
The library had a variety of homes in the first half of the century, including one in City Hall next to the jail cell. Some Red Deer old-timers can remember the purpose-built library on the north side of Ross Street, where the Parsons Clinic is today. A new library became an election issue in the mid-1960s, and after some controversy, a new one-story library was built to celebrate Canada's centennial in 1967. That's the main floor of the adult portion of today's downtown branch. This new facility was made possible thanks to generosity and the vision of longtime trustee Charlie Snell and his wife, librarian Mabel Snell. The Snells made a significant financial contribution, which was recognized in the naming of the Snell Auditorium, our main community program room. A second level was added to this building in 1979, thanks in part to a contribution from the Bauer family.
I found another cool kind of connection between the library and the museum when I was doing my research, and that had to do with building the Centennial Library in so the planning for that began in 1964 and the library opened in 1967. But there were a bunch of different locations that were thrown out by the city and the board of places that the library could possibly be located other than where it currently is located now. And one of the opportunities of open space in the city that they thought the library could occupy was this big open lot next to the recreation center. And that is where the Red Deer Museum and Art Gallery is located today. So I think that that's just really kind of fun that, you know, we could have been swapped maybe. We could have been downtown where you guys are, and you guys could have been over by the rec center hanging out where the mag is, which I think is sort of really funny.
Meanwhile, on the north side of the Red Deer River, a new branch of Red Deer Public Library was being built in the new G.H. Daw Community Center. This, of course, is known as the Daw branch of Red Deer Public Library, named for one of Red Deer's great contributors to libraries and public life in our community, Harold Daw. In 1993, planning began for a major expansion and renovation of the downtown branch. After 18 months of fundraising programming in the Fire Hall Fun Factory, the Children's Library in the basement of the Centennial Library moved next door into Fire Hall Number 1, which was originally the armory built in 1914. The new Piper Creek Optimist Children's Library was the focus of the expansion, built with $2.6 million raised by the Literacy and Legacy Capital Campaign. The new Kinsman Link connected the new Children's Library with the renovated adult spaces, the new Snell Auditorium, and the library's technical services or back office staff areas. Now, a few renovations later, the downtown branch has an assortment of spaces to meet the needs of our growing community, including the Link, which is a gathering place for the whole community, the Kiwanis Gallery, where community art is exhibited, and a library cafe called Café Noir. In 2008, construction began on a major renovation at the Daw branch. The completion of this project was in 2010, and it resulted in expanded programming space, a community gathering area with the Friends of the Library fireplace, and a beautiful new children's space, thanks to a generous donation from the Optimist Club of Red Deer. The newest branch of Red Deer Public Library, the Timberlands branch, opened in September 2014. This branch was built in partnership with Red Deer Public Schools as part of the new Timberlands School, and serves as a combination school and public library, much in the same way that the Daw Library operates in conjunction with St. Patrick's Community School. This branch has become a thriving center for the developing neighborhoods of East Red Deer.
I think it's really cool that the Red Deer Public Library has branches that also service schools in the community. Where I grew up in Lacombe, there was just the one public library, and all the school libraries were like separate entities that were run by the school. So I'm kind of jealous of these elementary school kids that get to have like a Red Deer Public Library card as their school library card. And can go to any of the branches and access any of the materials and any of the services that Red Deer Public Library offers. So I think that's really, really cool of them for the educational portion.
In 2022, Red Deer Public Library opened its first temporary pop-up branch in Bauer Place Shopping Centre as a way to reconnect with customers after COVID-19 related pandemic closures. This pop-up was located in a 1,651 square foot corner unit on the west end of the mall and was open for just over 6 months, from April to October 2022. This initiative was met with overwhelming positive feedback from customers over its accessibility, convenience, and south side location. Following the closure of the Bauer Place pop-up, RDPL opened its second pop-up in the Cullicut Recreation Centre in the summer of 2023. Located just inside the west doors of the Cullicut main entrance, this 650 square foot space was designed to be primarily self-serve, offering expanded library access and holds pickup during all of the Cullicut Centre hours of operation.
I think it's wonderful that the library is trying out these different locations, trying these pop-ups in different parts of the community. It brings those services to people who may not have come to the library themselves, and just reminded them that, hey, the library's here, these are the things we can do for you, and just I think it brings it to a wider audience almost, even just within our own community. So I think they're great. I admired the pop-up in Bauer Mall last year when I was wandering through. I'd always take a peek in and see what kind of stuff you had. I haven't made it over to the Cullicut yet, but I'm excited to see what's there. And if you do another pop-up again, I'm excited to see like where that will be and which people will discover it.
Over Red Deer Public Library's 110-year history, the library has witnessed many changes. From notable historical moments like 2 world wars, and more recently, a global pandemic, the library has stood the test of time within the community. Technological advancements have changed how the library operates and have shifted the needs and desires of customers. For many years, the library's physical collection was organized using card catalogs, but with the invention of computers and the internet, RDPL made the transition from using card catalogs to an online catalog system, which now many customers can browse from the comfort of their own home. As the internet and personal computers gained in popularity, customers started looking to access this technology and get assistance with it at the library. Now, not only was it the job of library staff to know the collection and what resources the library had available, but they were also required to learn how to teach, guide, and troubleshoot all manner of technology questions. Add to this the ever-changing political landscape over the decades, as well as other societal factors like the opioid crisis, increasing rates of homelessness, and a steady influx of newcomers who come to the library to learn about their new community, and it's clear to see that the work of the library, and thus of library staff, never ends. The job has shifted from helping people find books and materials to being connectors to the community at large, helping people find shelters, print resumes, locate job ads, download ebooks and other content to their mobile devices, support new parents with family-friendly programming, and so much more. The library does not exist in a vacuum, and issues in the community and beyond are often reflected in the changing queries of customers, the demands of the workplace, and the challenges that library staff face in meeting the needs of those we serve. Those who have worked at the library for a long time can attest to these changes, and of course some similarities that they've witnessed over the years.
So my name is Anne Harmon, and I was and always was a Reader Services Assistant, starting on level 2 in fiction and teen. By the time I finished, I did retire towards the end of COVID, but it would have been early 2021. I also worked on level 4 on information services, as well as on readers, helping people, and I also did displays in the library since 1995. Yeah.
My name's Mary Neely, and I worked as a library assistant 2 in adult services, which is readers and info together, from 2005 to, I think, 2020. It was during COVID when I retired, so 15 years, and you know, I wasn't promoted. It's tough.
I'm Trish Klein. I'm still currently at the library and have been here almost 36 years. I started out part-time in, I guess what was really called just reference. And I'm now one of the, they call us the fours, part of the programming committee here at the library. When I started here, this space did not exist as a library space. Children's was still downstairs in the basement, over in the Centennial building. Circulation, as it was known, was there, and I mean there was a wall. There was a wall, and we had staff development day on last week, and somebody said to me as they were going up the stairs, "Wonder how the firefighters did these stairs." I said, "These stairs did not exist when the firefighters," you know, which really just shows somewhat how things change building-wise over the course. But when I arrived, there was a pod of 4 people whose job it was to start putting all the books into computers. And that's when we started to see that. We still had the card catalog, but their job was to go and take each drawer of the card catalog and enter each book into what started out to be. I mean, that was just mind-blowing for, I think, most of us.
Therein lies insanity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we still use the card catalog quite a lot, you know, for another year or so.
Yep.
Before it all moved over into that area.
Yeah.
We got quite a lot of questions, what I seem to remember, on I like this book, what do I read next, or what's the next in the series, because people were not really looking anything up themselves yet. So they asked us, which was good. Got to learn actually a lot about the different authors, and then in time, after a few years, you got to know patrons and what they what they liked. You really did. It's kind of like a learning curve. I can remember a couple of things. I learned never to assume. Someone coming to the desk, looking at them, thinking, yeah, would they like this or that? I can remember quite a few ladies that were possibly middle-aged that surprised me by being very into science fiction that I just wouldn't have thought, and quite knowledgeable. And the other assumption, I've never forgotten this, was a young lady that used to come in each week. Well, she was probably mid-20s, and she was glamorous. Long hair, almost like Bridget Bardot and everything. She was looking for romance, and I took her to contemporary romance. She was young. She looked, and after a while she came to the desk and she said, there is no way I'm looking at this, it's smut. I want courtship and, you know, real love. And that was like, oh, okay, you know, that's different. And I remember a very short time afterwards, maybe within a week, a very elderly lady came in that was probably in her 80s, wanted romance, and I took her down there, and she was elderly and had to sit down, and I showed her some things, and she said, do you have anything a bit more exotic? At my age, all I can do is read about it. I've never forgotten that on do not look at anybody and think this is what you would like. Yeah. I remember things like that. So, but it was interesting helping people because you got to learn about the books too.
You know, when you say in the old days, I'm just a young chick here. You know, I wasn't there in the old days, but change is sort of a process, and some things are pretty organic, and they happen without a whole lot of sort of disruption. You can just see, like the coming of DVDs and the development of the audio books. And I liked the fact that the long-distance truckers came in and got their audiobooks before they went on the road. And they had their favorite authors, and like every reader, they had read their favorite authors out. So we were back to Anne's question. Who writes like their favorite author? Who might be another person they could listen to? And then they'd come back when they were here and say, no, that didn't work, but this guy is really good. I like him. And then they'd take his whole collection and we'd be in the same situation again. But it seemed to be pretty smooth. You know, things happened without feeling a whole jar. And then the longer we went along in the time I was here, the changes became more drastic and more marked. And that was a whole other process of change. But people are people, you know. And the one thing I loved about working here was all of humanity came through. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got to see everyone. We had a wonderful lady who came in. She was a beautiful woman, and she read so widely. When she came in, I felt like she was doing reader's advisory for me, and whatever she was taking out, I was writing down for my own book list.
Well, I'm probably right now the longest running employee left after Priscilla has left. So I did start part-time in adult services at 17 and a half hours a week, and went to full-time in 95 as what to go downstairs to the new readers services area, because that was something that we had just opened up. I have been here almost 36 years in January. I think that there are a lot of people out there that don't understand what we can do for the community and what we do for the community, but what we can do for the community as well. And especially if they haven't come in, they will often say, you will often hear people say, and I think I've had this conversation with you sometimes, where we've got friends or we've got people that, well, I don't read. And it's just like, you know, this sense of superiority that they do not read, so they do not have to come to the library. But really, it honestly is so much more than just being able to get a book. It's that, especially nowadays, it's the sense of community for some of the unhoused. It's the computers, because you cannot get a job these days without.
You can't put in a job application.
You can't put a job application in, you know, truly, without being able to access it. You can't. Government forms, and so often Service Canada is sending everybody to us. You know, the adult literacy, the youth literacy. One of the things that I've really noticed, and I think everybody noticed, especially with COVID, and our inability to have story times and to do that kind of stuff. And to have, and of course you have a child that was born just at that time period where they weren't able to get out and get socialized and go see all of the other people. And as we really notice at the story times, at the difference and how important it is to introduce literacy to kids and the learning and all of that kind of stuff. And I think it's just, especially nowadays, diversity, inclusivity, the sense of belonging that some people need to have because they're not feeling it out in the community. They could come here.
I couldn't say it any better. Trisha's covered exactly what I would say. It's not just about books. Yeah, for sure.
And the thing is, so many people who haven't been in a library are frightened. They feel inadequate, or in some way they don't belong, you know. And if you take them, and it's like opening a door, you know, and then you open a whole other world that they didn't know that they own. It's their library. It's the Red Deer Public Library, and it's a wonderful thing if you can get them to the door and open it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I have no more to say.
Except we loved our jobs.
Yes.
We all loved
our
the library.
job. Yes, absolutely. It was a joy going into work each day. Yeah.